At Rubber Band, we empower each other through positivity, kindness, and practical advice. Join a community of thousands of peers who understand the unique challenges you face. Rubber Band. Company agnostic, low ego, high empathy, always supportive.
Think you know Video My Job? Think again. We're no longer just a simple mobile app for video job ads. Think of us as a library of employee story videos embedded on your career site. Kind of like your very own YouTube, except you own the platform and not the marketing team. With Video My Job, you have a suite of enterprise-grade tools to plan video campaigns, send filming links, stay on message with AI scripts, and automatically brand your content. Want to know how we're helping talent teams like Deloitte create and publish 102 fully branded employee videos in just 4 days with zero editing required? Book a demo with Gav at videomyjob.com.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Rubber Band podcast, where I am joined by Joe Vohland from ATC Events and special guest Simon Hedt. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I live and work on, the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and I would like to extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome, two of my friends, Joe and Simon. How you doing?
Oh, so good, Eden. How are you?
I'm good, and so good to see some lovely smiling faces on this afternoon after a long day of work, and I've dragged you along to do a podcast and you're still full of energy and still smiling, so thank you.
It's always a reason to smile when I'm looking at the two of you.
Oh, you've won us over. Go. Get him to sell your tickets. He's got it. He's got the moves, right? Well, I want to start today by congratulating you, Joe, and celebrating that ATC has just turned 18. Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. We're ready to break out the West Coast coolers and do all the things 18-year-olds do, right?
Oh, 18. I don't want to think about my 18. All I can think of is honestly like cheap, yes, West Coast coolers, cheap wine, and then turning into Spewy Lewis in the news, right? Like, you know, that's not what you want for ATC, right?
You never know your luck.
And Simon, we're celebrating as well, right? You've started an amazing new gig with a brand that I'm really familiar with from REA. Tell us about your new role.
Yeah, I just joined a wonderful digital agency based out of Richmond called August. They have quite the history. They've been around for almost 20 years. In fact, we're celebrating our 19th anniversary in tomorrow, actually, which is really exciting. Yes, a small but mighty little company with some really fantastic ways of working, and coming on board to help them grow and expand into the future.
Well, August do an amazing job with our corporate and careers website and working hard on an update right now. So thank you, August, and Simon, give them a pat on the back from us.
No worries.
I want to talk about ATC. I've been obviously a fan of ATC for many years and participated last year, and this year I get to just enjoy the content. No nerves, no social anxiety.
Yeah,
I can just sit back and
scheduled to the hilt last year, emceeing, and those photos of you were just iconic. You had the audience in stitches. I don't know if you're in the room at the time. I know, Simon, you weren't there because you had a newborn last year. So that was 1 year that you missed. But at some point I was concerned Eden was going to be cancelled and out of his career because half the audience were in on the joke that, you know, the person that Eden was like eyeing off and flirting with was actually his husband. And the other half of the audience didn't know that Jason is Eden's partner and were like, oh my God, what is happening? And as soon as I said it. Like the audience, half the audience were just laughing their heads off, and the other half were just like, "Oh my God."
Thank
you know,
God.
nervous exhale. Thank God. I thought I was witnessing a crime. You know, it was absolutely hilarious. So, yeah, careful when you give this man a microphone.
Oh, right. And then, it's one of those things in our industry. You just assume everyone knows who's going out with who. And I didn't expect that. I thought everyone would be in on the joke, right? Like, Jason and I, speaking of anniversaries, we're 20 years this year. So we've been together a very long time. So, it's a year of anniversaries. But I want to talk about being 18 years old. There are 18 sessions this year, Joe. And, it's been, I suppose over the 18 years and the evolution of our industry, and we've just been in an environment the last few years that's been quite unique and quite different to what we've faced before. And I understand that, you've really concentrated on, I suppose the 18 sessions being really relevant to what's going on at the moment in 2024.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more than 18 sessions, but we've 18 are set aside for people that are attending to be able to improve their talent function, improve their career, improve their skills without levels and layers of approvals and budget. So, we don't want people to come along and only get solutions that involve spending $1 million and, doing a 12-month tech implementation, right? So there certainly are some sessions dedicated to the incredible technology, uplifting everything that we do. But 18 of them for our 18th birthday is really just all about, how can the individual, and not even the leader, but how can the individual recruiter improve what they're doing within their own paradigm and within their own sphere of influence. The whole point is to empower people, not give them some fancy information, but, have them walk away with their hands tied behind their backs.
And I think, it goes beyond budget as well, because quite often in organizations, due to hierarchy or what have you, people will feel, oh, I can't take that next step or I can't make that change. But what I love about the content is we can all own that, regardless of what level we are in a business. We can all take something away that we can implement as a talent acquisition professional or a leader within our sphere and within our scope, without it needing to be completely transformational.
And it's still shifting towards, it's still shifting towards talent advisory. It's still using talent intelligence. It's still doing strategic things like how to create a talent board for strategic alignment and for other parties within the business to have as much ownership over talent and talent decisions as the TA team do. It's still about, solving business and people problems. It's just not, some of it is a rethinking. It's not just about selling through the lens of a product offering or, needing, to change your entire technology base in order to do something.
That's right.
Simon's session is actually a great kind of representation of that, which is why, when you said, let's get together, I said, well, let's bring Simon in, because his session is exactly that. We've got 3 stages: think big, think practical, and think again. And Simon really hits a nail on the think practical with his session about feedback, the feedback loop.
Well, I think that's a really good segue, Joe. Thank you very much. You're just a pro at this, right? So, Simon, we would love, I know, right? We would love to hear about your session, because I'm really excited about it. And I know there are things that I'm going to really, really take away from it. I've got a real appetite for what you're talking about. And I think that's, continuous learning. So tell us about what you are presenting on.
Yeah, sure. Well, I don't want to give too much away. But essentially, Joe and I were talking a few months ago, and one of the things I think we all deal with as candidates, as recruiters and as candidates, is the feedback process, the feedback cycle. And feedback inevitably can be a really volatile thing, both to give it and to receive it. It can often be really difficult, hard to give, hard to hear. So we were just thinking about what are all the things that we've collected along the way, methodologies, practices, ways of both eliciting and extracting great feedback from hiring managers and interviewers, and really great ways of then delivering that said feedback to candidates in order to kind of not so much foolproof it, but just make that process a little bit more predictable. And I use that word very, very specifically. I think too often, particularly when people talk about candidate experience at this point of our talent economy, there's a lot of poor candidate experiences on there. And I think it's because recruitment teams or talent teams are under the pump, they're under resources for a number of different reasons. But primarily, the problem is that they're unpredictable. You don't know when you're going to get feedback. You don't know what's going to happen next. If you do get feedback, what's it going to be? Is it going to be a one-line email? Is it going to be a phone call? Is it going to be a text? Is it going to be something that you can actually use, and work on and build upon? Or are you going to get just ghosted, as often is the case, unfortunately? So it's really about a collection of my experiences, things I've learned from a lot of other people, books that I've read, things that I've tried that work, things that don't work as well. So it's really just a collection of my experiences, and hopefully is a way to help others on that same journey.
I agree. Like, I think it's, we make this assumption that people are being ghosted or not provided feedback due to the sheer capacity of talent professionals. But I think and that can be the case, and there's no excuses for it, right? Sort it out. But I think there's, on the other end, there are professionals that maybe just don't know how to deliver that feedback effectively. And that's where that breaks down. So I think really where your session is important is to help not only, professionals get tips and advice on ways to effectively provide feedback, because we're not taught that. Really, we're not taught that in agency world. We're thrown on the phones and we try and fill the roles and we work it as we go along. And I think learning from someone like yourself and, a peer and a leader in the industry that does this really well is not only going to be really impactful for talent acquisition professionals, but for leaders to then be able to educate their team members as well. Because I think there is a gap. I don't think it's all around capacity and volume. I think it is around skills development when it comes to feedback. And you just keep learning about it.
And the confidence, like if you don't have a formula or a technique, it's the confidence to actually step into it, which is why when Simon sent me the outline for his session, I was really interested because some of the things that he's got is they're going to be covering feedback types, so corrective, unconstructive, and positive. Feedback discovery, how to set expectations and workflows to easily obtain feedback from hiring managers. Feedback hygiene, setting yourself up for success. Feedback techniques, feed forward. I don't know what that is, but I definitely want to know. So feed forward, what, why, situation, behavior, and impact, and then feedback examples. So kind of really nutting into those examples that recruiters come across all the time, like, a hiring manager might say, they're not a good cultural fit. I mean, how do you go back and say that to a candidate, right?
Oh,
so,
what happens?
unpacking that, digging into it, what does that mean? How do I articulate that? Because I think, most people would be forgiven for just kind of shying away and going, oh God, like, I'm not getting the right kind of feedback to pass on, or B, when I do, like, how would I pass that on? What does that even mean? Yeah. So, I really loved his kind of formula and technique. It is, as the stage Think Practical suggests, it is very, very practical.
I think there's skills on both sides of the coin, right? That I think the large part of feedback is around interviewing skills. So how can we very simply as talent professionals provide structure and framework for our interviewers so that we're consistently getting evidence-based feedback, right? If we have a consistent process and we have really clear feedback every single time, it makes it much simpler to then go through your methodology and deliver said feedback, with it. And so it's just about creating a repeatable process, making our interviewers' lives easier, making our own lives easier, and then hopefully making life better for our candidates as well.
And Eden, this is where some of the sessions dovetail into each other, because if we take that and we connect it to the session that Matthew Lant at AFCA is doing. He's doing this incredible session where, AFCA hired this enormous amount of people. It was more than 50% of their existing workforce that was then hired in quick succession. And they went, whoa, this volume of people actually has the capacity to completely change our culture. And when we look at the hires that we made, we've got X number of hiring managers across the business, all who claim to know how to recruit, right? Everyone's heard that before. I've been hiring for years, says the marketing manager, finance manager, tech manager, etc. But what they're doing is they're bringing their collection of experiences with them. So they might know how Deloitte hired. They might know how Coles hired. They might know how Google hired. They might know how Queensland Health hired, but they don't know how AFCA hires, right? And so, his project that he worked on was really about aligning all of those people across the business involved in hiring decisions to, determine and then train people on what hiring the AFCA way looks like. And so this is where what you were saying before, Simon, one person's view on feedback from one organisation versus somebody else's view on feedback from a different organisation. Well, okay, what is your organisation's, hiring identity, and what is your view on feedback? So I really love how some of these sessions really dovetail into each other. They kind of empower each other in a sense.
And I see a really strong synergy with feedback and the role a talent professional plays in educating, to your point, Simon, the interviewers. I mean, at REA, where I am at the moment, almost 50% of our roles are filled internally, which means we have other people internally that aren't successful in, all of those roles. But we need to make sure that our hiring managers are providing that effective feedback. And to your point, Joe, you get new people in. We're constantly growing and hiring. We need to make sure that consistency is there. So I think both of those sessions you've highlighted, Joe, are really valuable. And straight away, I'm already walking away with something from you, Simon, and I haven't even attended the bloody conference yet. So,
I hope so.
There we go. Now, one of the highlights always for me, Joe, because I'm very passionate about innovation, very passionate about local innovation and also international innovation, right? But we have.
I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
The innovation.
The innovation lab. It is always my highlight. It is where
Do you know what? So many people say that, but it's one of those things that, the session that people book the ticket for, they go, oh, got to see this speaker, got to see this session. Let me tell you, 100% of the time, it's a totally different session that lights you up and energizes you and, makes you kind of walk away going, wow, that really, uplifted me, that really hit home. And it's amazing. Year on year, people will say the Innovation Lab is so exciting. It is so good. But really, ultimately, we've got 4 brand new talent technologies that have, barely hit the market, many of them still in beta testing, or they've got half a dozen customers, and they are doing a hardcore pitch. Like this is their 7 minutes on stage, and they usually have 3.5 minutes where they just pitch solid, and then another 3.5 minutes of really hard and fast Q&A. It is very exciting. It is a lot of fun. You do get to hear and see a lot of innovation. And what's really cool is that there are some pretty mainstream companies that we all use and know today that were once in the Innovation Lab. The people who were in beta testing and they only had 3 customers and those kind of things. And they're people like Video My Job, Enborder, WePloy, Vervo, there's some pretty great names there. And so this year we have 4 finalists, and I think we're just about ready to announce who they are. I believe next week that'll be coming out. And what's really cool is we give the audience, I think this is why a lot of people love it, we give the audience $100,000, sadly, Monopoly money. They get $100,000 and they all become an investor, right? It's like Shark Tank. And you're all the judges. And so the audience gets to choose who they're going to give 60,000 to, who they're going to give 30,000 to, who they're going to give 10,000 to, and the audience determines who the winner is. And it's really great to see who they get behind. I mean, Equity 2 years ago that was a runaway train. Like, she won by a mile. The minute she said, we have automated Wajir reporting,
Oh.
the audible gasps that came from the audience, I think people were like, oh my God, that's, such a trigger for me. It's so much work. That's amazing. So Nat really stole the show. The Hayes Choice Award winner, Peter Trelaw at Tally, he'll be coming back this year to, share with us 1 year after his win, what's happened with Tally and what they've been up to. So yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun.
And a Rubber Bands member, and I do know one of the finalists this year is another bander. So, but I'm not allowed to be favourable, right? But there we go. There we go. So, Rubber Band community, get behind it. You've got to,
We'll have to have another banders meetup like we did at the ITC.
We definitely will. We definitely
grab a
will.
photo together. Can't wait. It's such a good community.
Oh, it is. It really is. And any banders that are coming along, we'll all be wearing lanyards, so we will have names, unlike the ITers. And if you see another bander, introduce yourself, right? And we've got, Simon, Joe,
and all the women in their, their dresses and their makeup, you can kind of barely recognise people. It's, it's like, you don't look like your LinkedIn photo.
It was like that. It was really like that. The joys of
you'll have lanyards. Yeah.
We will have lanyards. So, yeah, we'll have an absolute wonderful time celebrating together. I want to ask from your perspective, Simon, what with ATC, what excites you for this year, aside from being on the stage and, us all cheering you on? What are you most excited about?
Well, I think I'm certainly going to get the nerves that you experienced last year, Eden. I've not had that before. But look, what excites me pretty much every year about ATC, first of all, is the ability to kind of disconnect from the daily grind and step away. I think too often we just get sort of stuck in that heads down, kind of squirreling away through the work that we do. And what we do in talent acquisition is a never-ending cycle. It's like the dishes or the laundry. Like it keeps going. You do one load, there's another one to go. So the opportunity just to step away and hear from a diverse variety of perspectives and different organizations and connect with others, and just it allows that space for ideas, which you often don't really get. Ideas don't come in isolation. You can't just go off by yourself and go for a walk or sit in a room and expect to kind of come up with a whole range of creative solutions. It's only in those collaborative sessions and the conversations that happen after the sessions, that's when the really good stuff tends to come out. Whether it's having lunch with a bunch of people you've just met, from different organizations, talking about the session you were just in, or whether it's over a few drinks, after day one or something like that. I always talk about it. The best ideas are actually when other ideas have babies, and they kind of get together and make other little ideas, and they kind of keep kind of procreating from each other until you get this really beautiful idea that pops out, and you're like, oh, that's it. And you couldn't have done it by yourself. So that's the bit that I love about ATC and what I always look forward to.
I liken it to, when your synapses are firing and you get that hit of oxytocin. And I think that's all about, the knowledge and the community and the inspiration all coming together. Like it's that perfect storm of all of those elements. I mean, I've had really very impressive talent leaders come to me and grab me and say, oh my God, I found myself again at your event. I was so numb to the grind. And, everything in the economy and everything that's happening, it really got me down. And I'm back. Like I can feel it. I'm back. I mean, Eden, I had your partner, Jason, say to me a couple of years ago, like, I was so done and I'm back. I'm in love with this again. And I think that's really important, because when you are going to spend an entire career here, and this has got to get us through to either retirement or that, big $100 million lottery win. But we have to be continually excited. I mean, ATC's 18. When we think about what hiring was like 18 years ago, at least 50% of it looks a little different. I mean, the workforce, candidate expectations, the way in which we engage at work, hierarchy breakdowns, all those kind of things, they're all really different. And so we can't stay stagnant. And that is one of the really important things. That's what you get. It's like that perception versus perspective. We have to step outside of ourselves for true perspective. And, that's the kind of magic that you can't kind of bottle readily, but seems to happen every year at the event. So, we'd invite you, if you haven't been before or you haven't booked yet, to come on down and join us, because it's truly such a welcoming community of people. Like, you will make fast friends and really high quality networks.
I'd agree with that. That's what I've always taken away from ATC. I suppose the diversity of people and the diversity of perspectives. It isn't, a conference that is just for, senior directors and executives. There are people from different industries. There are people from agency. There are people from internal. There are people that are early in their internal careers. And then, of course, there are people that are in exec roles. But we all just come together so beautifully and share so collaboratively in a really supportive environment. I've never experienced, any sort of cliques at ATC or, people that are kind of huddling away together.
Are super accessible. I had somebody come up to me last year and go, I can't believe how accessible the speakers are. I'm like, of course they are. They're regular people. They're us. They're the TA community. That's a really beautiful part, when people can really feel like they're not on the outer. They are at the center of everything that's going on. But it doesn't mean to say you have to be an extrovert. There's plenty of space to do things in your own way. Unless you're Eden's husband and you're going to have someone on the microphone come up and and make you do live Q&A, you're generally pretty safe.
The other thing that I think is worth pointing out as well, that often the word conference elicits this sort of corporate stuffy environment where you're kind of stuck in a chair all day, just kind of listening to people talk at you. That is couldn't be further from the truth when it comes to ATC. It is just the least corporate, least stuffy environment. It is so much more interactive and vibrant and connected. I've never been to a conference that's like it. I haven't been to a huge amount, but enough to know that that ATC is a really unique and much more welcoming and kind of open environment than what you would normally find.
Agree. I absolutely agree. And I want to just talk about some of the other, speakers and some of the other content. Jo, I know you can't go through your, however, it's in the 20s, I'm sure, different sessions. I want to say I'm really looking forward to my friends and beautiful colleagues, Lee and Angelica, talking about the REA Talent Neighbourhood, of course. But tell me about some of the other sessions and what we can expect.
Yeah. Look, I asked Craig and Martha at Worley to come along and present a session on the successful, the elements of a successful talent strategy. I've been in a position to review a number of talent strategies in the past, and I found, I guess, the level and depth of those strategies to be extremely wide and varied. And I think sometimes it can be a pretty lonely job when you think, it's my role to sit there and, do the strategy, or you start in a new role. How often has this happened? You start in a new role and somebody goes, there was no real strategy here before. And then you go looking through the share folders and, you find the talent strategy, you find the PowerPoint slide, and you're like, hey, 70% of this is pretty good. It's just that it never lived beyond that individual. Right. So again, coming back to how the sessions dovetail together, Worley have got a really respected talent strategy. They'll be presenting on, what they believe are the successful elements. And importantly, they've got their head of talent acquisition and head of talent management working together, which is a really important collaboration. And they'll be co-presenting. But again, how do you get this to live beyond you? So then you head over to Maisie Farmer's session. And Maisie's from Downer, and she has created a talent board. So talking about, people in the C-suite, hiring managers, a range of executives across the company, as well as some people from obviously HR and TA as well. But, having that shared collective kind of piece to make talent decisions together. And so, you come back to how all those set, one thing can't really be successful without the other thing. So, how do we balance both? What else are you going to get? You're going to be able to prompt like a boss. Go and see Maren Boyd Andrews from Fonterra. He is one cool cat. Maren is got to be, without a doubt, the most curious person. And I mean curious as in he's like a detective. He's just, he's like, oh, let's tinker with this. Let's play with this. Let's try and break this. Let's break it down. And, this is somebody who's created such a niche for himself because he no longer heads up sourcing at Fonterra. He now heads up the prompt team, right? So this means that if you're in marketing or if you're in L&D or if you're in sales or if you're in customer service or wherever you are in the business and you need a resource, he will write a prompt for you and create the resource. So people are now coming to him for more than just talent, right? And it's all because of the prompt skills he created by just having a tinker and having a play and working it out and perfecting it. So if you want to be able to prompt like a boss, definitely Maren's session is not to be missed for sure. There's so many. I can talk about all.
There's so many. I'm going to save you, Jo, because I know you just want to talk about them all. So, ATC, get on the website, get on LinkedIn. You'll see it all there, and it's very easy to find, audience. So jump on there and learn all about it. There's such a great variety of content. There is so much diversity in what is presented. There are 3 big stages. There are breakout rooms. There's innovation labs. We've got
the Tech Expo, social drinks. Don't forget the social
works. Get your tickets in, Jo. Now, any special offers right now? Are there any things that people need to jump on right away to catch before they expire? What's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've got our individual tickets. We've got a special first-timer rate. We've got team tickets. It's so beautiful to have so many of the REA team come. I think all of you are coming, right? So we've got the whole team there. It's amazing. But when you go to the site and you choose what you want to do, if you put in the code ATC200, you'll actually get an additional $200 off, your ticket and your booking. I'll give you an example. We've got a special at the moment, a duo ticket. So you and a colleague, because these things are really best experienced when it's shared and you can both go back and take your learning and your enthusiasm with you. So 2 tickets for 3,000 plus GST or 5 tickets for 5,000 plus GST. And, we'd love you to come along and join us.
Well, I can't wait to see you both there. Thank you so much for joining me so late in the afternoon. I'm sure you're dying to go and get your dinner, but thank you so much, Jo and Simon. And as I said, jump on the website. What's the web address?
ATCevent.com.
ATCevent.com.
ATC this year. There are free playbacks. You can play back all of our webinars. You can read content. There's a bunch of things to do on there. And in fact, I just ran the numbers, Eden. Quickly, I've just got to say, I was absolutely shocked. I'm trying to remember what the exact number was, but it was over 100,000 visits in the last 12 months. I mean, the talent community are just going crazy on our site. And it is thanks to, we really try not to kind of go, this is talent according to Jo, right? It's really about sharing the microphone around, sharing the editorial seat around. It's all about what is happening on the desk of, a variety of talent leaders that week. And so, if you ever kind of want to know how an amazing and sometimes award-winning talent leaders solve problems, dig around in there. There's lots of content by lots of people. So hopefully you can make it to the big event. But if not, jump onto atcevent.com and have fun, have a play.
We will definitely have fun. Thank you, Jo. Thank you, Simon.
No
Thanks.
worries. You're welcome.
Yeah.